On this episode of the Comic Blast podcast, Grayson and I give you our non-spoiler thoughts for Knives Out. That's right, we don't always talk comic book movies. We're also going to give you our full spoiler review for Jedi Fallen Order. All of that coming up next.
Before we get started, does anyone want to get out? Consider this mercy. I am inevitable.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Comic Blast podcast. My name, of course, is Grayson. I'm not Keenan because Keenan is the other guy. What's going on, Keenan?
Living the dream. Happy to be doing the podcast. This is our, second episode within a week, technically, because we were late on the last episode.
Yeah, we got behind on the last one, so we could have done it yesterday, technically, but we decided to, let's give a little bit more space, and because normally we try to do them on Tuesdays and put them out on Wednesdays. Yeah. Today is a Wednesday, so because we just got really, off track last week with the end of school and everything like that.
It's just a weird time. I mean, like you said, end of school, but holidays and everything like that. The scheduling is just a little weird right now, but
yeah. What happened is the last week's episode, we were going to do at our normal time, and literally I get a text 30 minutes before we were about to do it, and I'm still at school working on this big project, and I was like, oh my God, I totally forgot about the podcast. And we couldn't figure out a good time to reschedule it. I feel like we should have talked about that last week. That's why we were so late, because we kind of just didn't even acknowledge it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, dude, I'm so sorry. I totally forgot.
I got stood up.
And so I know I'm the worst.
Yeah. I had everything set and ready. And then I got that message, and I was like, okay. It worked out good because I kind of used that time to post the first What's Up Spidey video. Edit that, which I was really behind on. So it kind of worked out for the best.
Yeah, and now if you haven't checked that out already on our YouTube channel, that's a good segue. He uploaded yet another What's Up Spidey video, and it's on some sweet Black Friday deals, or just deals in general for Spider-Man related and even some other just Marvel related stuff. So if you guys want to go check that out, head on over to our YouTube channel, which is just Comic Blast. And of course, if you could help rate and subscribe on all of the other platforms that we are on, so that would be SoundCloud, Spotify, and iTunes. Leaving ratings and stuff helps out immensely. So even if it's just a quick 5-word review and just some nice compliments, that would be fantastic, as it really helps us out a lot. We also obviously have our social media platforms. That would be Comic Blast _ on both Instagram and Twitter, and you can find mine and Keenan's personal social media in the bios, descriptions, whatever of those. And lastly, our Patreon. Shout out to our patrons and our sponsors. They have been very gracious enough to help us out for a little while, and so we really appreciate them. So shout out to you guys. And if you guys are interested, I believe it is I always forget the Patreon.
Yeah, it's just patreon.com/comicblast.
Okay, just Comic Blast. Yeah. And I believe that is everything. So for this episode, it's slightly weird. So since it's this whole weird season where it's obviously we've been talking about a lot of Star Wars, and we're not going to break that trend. This is still going to we're going to be talking about mostly Star Wars today. But before that, we do want to talk a little bit about actually Rian Johnson's newest movie, Knives Out, which we saw together last night.
Yes.
And we're not going to talk about spoilers, whatever. We just kind of want to talk about our general thoughts on the movie, because I guess it's interesting to talk about, because first I just really enjoyed it as a movie, but also because I think since obviously he did do The Last Jedi, and people have a lot of thoughts on that. People tend to think he might be like a bad writer or a bad director, which I've never really thought, because all of the stuff before, like, and I even, obviously, people know my thoughts on The Last Jedi. Like, I enjoy that movie. I don't think it's perfect or whatever. But, like, his track record is very good. And Knives Out was no different, I feel like. I thought it was one of the best movies of the year, for sure.
Yeah, I agree 100% with most of what you're saying. I think Knives Out definitely is like in that top 5 area for movies of the year so far for me. I mean, there's been a lot of great movies like Us. I really liked Joker. John Wick 3 was really high up on my list.
That's right.
Too.
Yeah.
So there's been a ton of good stuff to come out this year, and there's a lot more good stuff coming out in the next couple of weeks. But Knives Out is definitely high up there for me so far. Yeah,
I think there's like a couple of components that I really liked about the movie, and that was like the cast. First of all, I think is what sells this movie. There's like, you could talk about so many great like performances in it, and like, I mean, some of them are not even that big, but like the first one that comes to mind for me is actually it's like a tie between Daniel Craig and Chris Evans.
Yeah,
I think they're both really freaking good in this movie, and like Daniel Craig's performance is like so over the top, and like it's so different. But man, that guy needs to be in more movies. Like, I know he's already in a good amount of stuff, but like, whenever people see Daniel Craig, they tend to think of James Bond, right?
Yep.
Because that's like, I mean, that's the biggest character. And this shows them like he's a lot more than just James Bond. Like he does such a great job. Like, I was literally, the very first time he speaks in this movie, I was just like grinning into ear to ear, because I'm just like, this guy is like so goofy and kind of weird, but like, I don't know, he did a fantastic job. Chris Evans, like, it's funny because you're so used to seeing him as Captain America. Yep. And like, he's this very well dressed guy or whatever, but like he's such a jerk, but he's such like a lovable jerk. Like, I don't know why. Like, I just like loved seeing him. And then I think probably the standout though was Ana de Armas, who I'd already liked her from Blade Runner. But she's like has a really important role in this movie, and she did a great job. I don't know. I feel like part of me wants to see her like nominated in a lead role, but like she probably won't be, because there's a lot of other movies that are coming out this year. Yeah. I don't know if she was like that good, but like still, she did a really great job for someone who has not been in a whole lot of big movies other than Blade Runner, and I think she was in Yesterday, that like Beatles movie or whatever.
She was in that. She was in this movie called War Dogs.
She was in that? Oh wow.
Yeah, she was like. She was Miles Teller's girl or whatever. Yeah, gotcha. I agree. Like, I don't think that she was like an Oscar nominee. Yeah. Per se, but I think she did a really good job, especially considering that they didn't really sell her character that much in the marketing. They didn't really promote that character so much.
No, I didn't even think she was going to be a main character.
Yeah, she seemed like a background character. She ended up being in the center of the movie. Yeah. So she definitely was a standout. And Daniel Craig, oh my God, like his performance in this movie was just like, it was over the top. It was very unexpected. And the dude, I mean, he can just flat out act. I wasn't expecting that out of him for this movie, because he starts off kind of quiet in the film. But he really shines in the movie. And of course, Chris Evans, like you said, so used to seeing him as Captain America. Yeah. And have that whole, having that whole persona, as like, the clean cut good boy. And to see him more in like a villainous type role, or just a bad guy, essentially. It was almost kind of jarring, but it was funny.
He's like not even inherently like a bad guy. He's just kind of like in this weird like gray area, and like a lot of the characters are in this. There's so many great, like, I love the whole dynamics between all the characters. Like, they really kind of set up this family really well.
I think what the best part about the whole cast in general is, because there is so many stars in this cast, I think that naturally there's some sort of like competitiveness, and you kind of bring out the best in each other when you're around such a great cast like that. You know,
Yeah.
when you got people loving what they're doing and taking it seriously,
Yeah.
everybody's elevating each other through their performances.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, God, Rian Johnson. I mean, like I definitely dislike The Last Jedi, but I've loved every other movie he's done. Like I think
Yeah.
Looper is a masterpiece, and Brick is a highly underrated movie, and you can check it out on Netflix if you haven't seen it already. But that's like one of his early films. I think it might be his first film.
Yeah. I
And
think
then
so.
this film right here, it's just like it blew me away. I kind of expected that I was gonna like it. But I mean, it just goes to show that, like you said, Rian Johnson, he can write, he can
Yeah.
direct. For whatever reason, his take on Star Wars didn't really resonate with a lot of people,
Yeah.
but that does not mean that he's talentless at all.
No, definitely not. Like I think the writing and just like direction of this movie was on point. And it's really hard to do like a murder mystery, because like people have been kind of saying how like that's not really a popular genre as much anymore. And that's why it really stood out to me. I'm like, oh man, like a murder mystery, like also kind of comedy, because you like it's a funny movie, and not like a funny like, oh, it's intentionally trying to make you laugh, but just like it does a good job of like having those lighthearted moments in a movie about someone getting killed, you know. So it's it was a really good movie, but
It was awesome.
you guys should definitely go check it out. We're not going to get into spoilers or anything because it literally like just came out. But if you get the chance and you just want to like watch a movie that's not like a comic book movie or whatever, like you were saying last night, it's good to just go to the movies sometimes and watch a movie that's not this comic book movie or like sci-fi like nerd movie or whatever, like Star Wars or whatever. Like it's just cool to see a good movie that's different from other stuff. So
Exactly. It's just a well-written script, and for us, like whenever we're going to see comic book movies and stuff, like we enjoy it as fans, but we also kind of overanalyze it in a way because we have to prepare for what we're going to say on like the podcast and whatnot. And we also like we have friends who kind of come to us for their opinions on stuff. So we kind of overanalyze these films, and it was really cool just to sit back and enjoy the film and not worry about anything like that.
Yeah, it was a very like small theater when we went into it. Like there wasn't a whole lot of people, and everybody was relatively like like they didn't interrupt the movie, whatever, which I find often happens a lot in like comic book movies, is that you get kind of like these more general audiences who are just like these people that are just so loud and obnoxious. So that you could tell these people like were there to see a good movie. And so, yeah, it was a good time. And I'm also just like excited to see a lot of other movies like in the next couple of weeks, like that aren't comic book movies. Like we were talking about 21 Bridges, and there's the movie 1917 that's coming out. Uncut Gems comes out, I believe, in December. So a lot of good movies that are within the next couple of weeks that I'm very intrigued to see. And so this was like kind of a good way to start off. But yeah, go check out the movie. It's really good. And if you guys like have like a bad taste in your mouth from Rian Johnson, whenever, like I can almost guarantee like this will probably change your mind.
Take it from me, from somebody who does not like that movie, The Last Jedi. Going into this, I was so happy to come out and just say that I loved the movie. And you have to give credit to Rian Johnson. I mean, this is, out of everything that he's done, I think this is his best writing. Because all around it was just a perfect script. Like I really didn't have many issues with the movie at all, other than I got concerned at the beginning because I thought it was going to go like in a different direction at first. But yeah, I mean, like it's in time, there's times where it's like very heavy in dialogue, and throughout the movie it's like really heavy in dialogue and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it has a little bit of everything, and the comedy is just so well done. So different from like The Last Jedi's comedy, of course. Yeah. Where that one felt a little bit more along the lines of like a Marvel film. This was just done so well, and I think he kind of just had the freedom to really do what he wanted with this story. Yeah. And I think where Rian Johnson really excels is when he gets to kind of create his own characters. Yeah. Versus The Last Jedi, you're kind of picking up, legacy characters.
That's
And,
why I hope that his movies or whatever do not get scrapped, because I think in the Star Wars universe, if he is rolling with characters that he has created separate from this whole main saga, they're probably going to be great films.
I 100% agree with that.
Yeah, and I think that we were talking about a couple weeks ago, like there's always that kind of, I think the biggest problem with the Star Wars movies and like these other directors is that they have these clash of visions where it's like they want to be able to flex their creative talent, but it's hard to do it in this really established and grand universe. And when you give a director someone able to just kind of run free and be separate from all this stuff, like they can do a really great job. So that's why I'm hoping like these films that he does, whatever they may be, they're just really far and disconnected out from the main saga films. Like I don't even want a character from them, unless it's like a super, super minor character or something like that. Just like, and just kind of let him run free. And I think he'll do an exceptional job. So
he needs the ability to write his own characters. And I think that's the problem with The Last Jedi, is that they actually did give him all that freedom.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like legacy characters, you know, the important ones, it's really tough. Because they come with an expectation for how you expect those characters, you know, to act on screen. But yeah, if he gets his own, you know, his own characters to develop and write, I think he would do a great job. So hopefully someday down the line, even if he does, but like if he doesn't get around to Star Wars, I'd be happy if he keeps making movies like Knives Out, because we need more films like this in the theater.
So like, to admit, like I have never seen so from when it comes to like to Rian Johnson's work, I've seen obviously The Last Jedi. I saw all of Breaking Bad, which he did 2 of the like best episodes in that show. And then this movie. I've never seen Brick, nor have I seen Looper, and I have especially been wanting to see Looper so badly lately. And I'm just like, it's not really. I don't think it's on any streaming services. At least I don't think it is. But I remember like my dad, like he really likes that movie, and I remember like watching like a clip of like seeing Joseph Gordon-Levitt kind of look like Bruce Willis, and like they do like the makeup really well, and like just I know like kind of the plot of the film, and I'm like, oh man, like I want to see it so badly. So I may go and try to like, or I think if you said Brick was on Netflix, I may go watch that tonight, and then also try to find Looper or whatever. Just I'm very blown away, and he's like, if he keeps it up, like he'll definitely become one of my like favorite writers and directors, because he just has that, like, I don't know what his style is, but he just kind of has it. But anyway, I think that's pretty much it we can talk about for that, because we want to talk about something that's more tailored to our grander audience, I would say, that I hope at least. So for the rest of the episode, we want to talk about. We talked about a little bit of Jedi Fallen Order last week, and we just kind of gave some general thoughts. Last week, I had not beaten the game, and I was probably about halfway, maybe about like a little over halfway through the game, and then like right after we recorded the episode, I got off, and I just sat there and I just played the entire game for the rest of the day, and man, it was great. So. If you have not played Jedi Fallen Order, and you want to, or you don't want to get spoiled or anything like that, then definitely stop listening, because we're just gonna go on a full on just spoiler discussion, just talk about our thoughts on the game, and like and just the story beats, and just everything that like we really enjoyed or maybe disliked about the game, and stuff like that. So if that's concerning to you, then definitely click off. But if you don't care, or you have played the game and beaten it and all that stuff, keep on listening. So, man, what to talk about first? It's always hard to like jump into these things, like to just like, where do we start?
I mean, like I think my favorite part about the game, obviously, like I had a really frustrating time with like the game mechanics and the combat for a while.
Okay, so. Finish what you're saying, and then I know what we're going to start off talking about with first.
So the most important thing, the thing that kind of kept me playing and loving the game, was the story and the characters.
Oh, so good.
to start with, Cal Kestis, obviously he's one of my favorite Star Wars characters right now.
Oh yeah.
I thought the side characters at first were a little bit weak.
I
because
agree.
They kind of just stand around and drop you off places, and then they walk outside the ship and wait for you to come back. And when you're coming back, you're like running from some demon monster or something like that, and they're just sitting there waiting. But anyways, Cal, we should probably just break down the story a little bit. Cal obviously was like a Padawan.
Yeah.
When Order 66 happened.
So like when you start off the game, you kind of just don't really know anything about Cal other than like he's just on this planet Baraka, and you know he's a Jedi, or like he was a Jedi and stuff. But like when he first started playing, and I was like, okay, he probably, like, I thought he wasn't gonna start off with his lightsaber, and he just has it, and I was just like, okay. But then when you read the description, you're like, it's Jaro Tapal's, and so or Tapal's, and I was like, Jaro Tapal? I'm like, who? What? I was like, who? It's like his old master. I was like, okay, that's kind of irrelevant. Like, what a throwaway name. But then, like, I don't remember what point it is in the game, but like, you're like walking. Oh, I think it's. Are you in the train car, and like you get a force vision?
Yeah.
And so, and like you're just walking, you turn around, like the doors close, and you turn around.
Oh my god!
And
that
like,
was so cool.
and you're just like in like this Republic, like or like Imperial style, like Venator hallway. And I was like, I legit thought it was gonna be like a scary moment or something like that. I was like, oh god, like I'm about to pee my pants right now, and like there's a little pee coming out of me right now. And then and so I keep on walking, and then just boom, like this Lasat, like Jedi Master. First of all, really cool to see a Lasat like in a live action format. If you guys don't know, a Lasat is Zeb's species. If Zeb is from Rebels. It was really cool to see him being like a Jedi Master, or like that species being a Jedi Master. And so I was like, oh, okay, cool. And so like I kind of put together, I was like, all right, so that's definitely his master. But I was like, are we gonna get like more of this? Like this is because it has a good job of like kind of filling in with this like non-linear story. I mean, like it's definitely a linear story, but like they build up the character in such a way, like with the writing of Cal, and even with Cal and with Sayre, and then obviously when you figure out Sayre's kind of past with Trilla, the second sister, you just kind of get this whole kind of like really cool surrounding story with that. And so like the entire thing, like with Jaro Tapal, like I love that you just keep on kind of going back in these flashbacks, and he's remembering these force powers, and like you're slowly getting them, and it may be like a little cliche, but like I really enjoyed just like seeing him kind of like, first of all, it was really weird playing as him as a kid. Like I was just like, oh god, like this is like kind of strange. But then when it's really cool because you kind of slowly build up to it, and then when you get to that Order 66 moment, you know, it's like you really you get the full story of kind of
that's around the time where like the game started to take off for me. What would you say? That's about like a third of the way through.
Order 66?
Yeah.
I didn't see the Order 66 scene until like 2/3, like towards like the later half of the game.
You may be right. It's kind of been a while since I've gone through the game.
I remember I had not seen Order 66 when we had recorded last week. It was well after Kashyyyk. I believe it was the Order 66 scene was possibly, I'm trying to remember now. I think it was like roughly before you have to build your new lightsaber. Anyway, I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, I think you're right about that, actually.
Yeah, and because I remember it's like, I think it's before, actually, it may even be when you get your new lightsaber, because I think, so you obviously, when you go to Dathomir, and you have like the vision, and like
you're right.
And your master like blames you, you know, you're like, you let me die and all of this stuff. First of all, really great moment, because I was like, oh my god, there's about to be a boss fight with my master. Like this is tough. Like this is gonna be rough. And so like, I don't know about you, like I'm kind of jumping around all over the place. Like I want to get back to kind of, but like when I got to this moment, like I was like, I don't want to attack him, because he will not attack you. Like he will sit there and he will wait for you to attack him. And I'm like, I don't want to attack him. And I was like, screw it, fine, whatever. And then you kind of get in that whole. Anyway, I'm just jumping all over the place right now.
So let's quickly, like, we can just like summarize the story. So
streamline
it. Cal is essentially, he is a survivor of Order 66. He escaped. His master died trying to save him and protect him. He lands on this planet where he kind of is. He's kind of like an engineer.
He's like a scrapper. That's what they call him.
Scrapper, yeah. What was his friend's name?
It's like
Braca.
Oh God.
I can't remember, but he has an
Prawn
alien
or something.
friend.
I don't know.
Yeah, he has an alien friend there on this planet, and obviously they go off to fix this problem. And his friend, or like something happens, and they start to kind of like they're like falling off the side of this. I don't know. Ship?
It's a Venator, I believe. It's a
Okay.
Venator, like Star Destroyer.
So they're falling off. Cal essentially has to use the Force to save him, which exposes him to his friend that he was a Jedi. At this point in time, Cal obviously wants to keep that a secret. His friend is fine with that. And then this is where we get on to that scene where they're on kind of like a subway cart, and Cal falls asleep on the subway. He has a Force vision, which is very like similar to the one that like Rey has in The Force Awakens.
Yeah, for sure.
I thought that one was really cool. And then they get stopped because there's like a search there. Obviously, the Inquisitors kind of got word that there was a Jedi, and that's when we get our first run-in with the second sister. And then Cal obviously tries to protect his friend who ends up dying.
Yeah, gets stabbed right to the freaking chest.
Yep. Which was like I was already kind of heartbroken about that.
Yeah, it's really sad.
Yeah, so Cal ends up going on the run. That's where we kind of have this like run-in with Seer and Grease.
Yeah.
Seer is a former Jedi who cut herself off from the Force. Grease is captain of the Mantis, which is this giant ship.
Yeah.
They kind of heard through Imperial radio waves that they were chasing a Jedi, so they went, to try to rescue him.
Mm-hmm.
That's where this adventure kind of starts with Cal, Seer, and Grease. From there, their journey, or their journey is, their story is about rebuilding the Jedi Order.
Yeah.
Through what's the guy's name?
Cordova.
Yeah. Okay. So, first planet that you go to is Bogano, right?
Mm-hmm. You go to Bogano, yeah.
Yeah, that's where you get BD1,
Mm-hmm.
and all of that. Yeah, so that kind of just like starts the journey. And they're looking for I don't know, a holocron.
Yeah, so essentially they're looking for a holocron that contains a bunch of Force-sensitive children, like a list of them, to help rebuild the Jedi Order. And so Cordova had like hidden this holocron on the Temple of Bogano, but they can't get it until they've unlocked like the other temples. So it's kind of like this like kind of Indiana Jones style adventure where they're like going to these other temples of like the Zepho, that's the species, which leads you to the planet Zepho, where they are that's the home world. And that's kind of where for the game, like for me, really picked up. Like I think I just got really like fascinated when like you get to Zepho, and it's really cool, like the way they do the planet hopping. Like you don't like just go to one planet and you're just done. Like you go to a planet and then you can go to another. Like you go to another one and then you kind of come back to Zepho, and then you go to like all of this other stuff. And they do a really good job of kind of like letting you explore, but also kind of guiding you in the right path. Yeah. There weren't many times where I ever got like lost and I was just like, where the heck do I go? I think the map is really cool in this game. Like, I like just kind of having BD1 like on your shoulder, just kind of like helping you. Like, BD1 is like, I freaking love him.
Yes,
he's such a great droid. Like
one of the best droids in Star Wars.
He's like, and he serves such a great purpose for the story. Like he's not like this just little robot for the sake of being cute, which is what sometimes I often feel like the sequel trilogy kind of suffers from, is that they have these droids that like while I love BB-8, like I think he's a nifty little droid. Like I sometimes was just like, I feel like they're just trying to make him like cute for the sake of being cute, Yeah. And at BD1, like it starts off like that, but then you quickly realize like, he is integral to the story, because when you get to Bogano, like he was Cordova's droid, and he has all of these like archived hollow footage of Ina Cordova, like kind of trying to piece these things together. And also Ina Cordova was Cere's old master, which is why she knows so much about it. There's an entire comic series going on right now. I think they only have one more issue left. And I actually really want to pick it up now because I'm first of all, I love the characters in this game. Even characters that like, there was a character that you get on later in the story, so after you go to Zepho, kind of open up the first temple, you unlock your force push and things like that. You run into Imperials, all of that stuff. Then you go to Kashyyyk, you bump into Saw Gerrera and kind of help them with like the freedom fighters trying to find Tarful, because there's another temple on Kashyyyk. You end up having to go back to Zepho, and that's when you figure out like the second sister is Trilla, who is Cere's apprentice and was turned into an Inquisitor. Great moment, by the way. She's another great character that I would love to see more of. I was talking to some people, and they were saying that like they would love a DLC, or I would personally love a DLC where you get to play as the second sister, possibly like maybe when she is like early on, and you get to maybe like hunt down some Jedi or something. I think that would be really, really cool. And it would work very well with the gameplay, considering you do get like a double-bladed lightsaber and stuff like that. And I think Trilla is a cool character. And like, while I wanted the second sister to be Barriss Offee from the Clone Wars, I'm glad that she wasn't. I think she served a better purpose being connected to Cere. Also, speaking of that whole thing, like when you first fight her, I was just like in the very beginning of the game, before you get picked up from like the Mantis, I think. I was just like, this is terrifying because I'm still really bad at this game, and like I'm about to get my butt kicked by this.
I thought like I was gonna have to actually get her down to no health.
Oh, really?
And I was like, because they only make you get down like not too far on her health bar or whatever before it like progresses the story.
I think you don't even have to, like, you can just completely get destroyed by her and still be okay.
Oh, really? Okay,
yeah,
so
I did like no damage.
Okay. That's what okay. So I kind of got a few hits on her from what I remember. But then I was like, there is no freaking way I'm going to beat her. I was like, how do they expect you to beat her? And obviously they intentionally do that to kind of progress the story. They do that a couple times actually in the story. Yeah. But yeah, I was kind of terrified of her. Not gonna lie.
She's very menacing. Especially like the entire
her
like
theme music.
Oh, dude, it's so good. Speaking of the music, I really, really want to like get the soundtrack for this game whenever it comes out. Like, I want to listen to it because they did such a great job with the soundtrack. Like, it feels so Star Wars, and I love that. And it's not straight up from the movies, which they do use some movie scores specifically in one moment, in a couple moments where it's really good for the story purpose. And we'll get into that into a second. But yeah, they did a good job with the score, and but there are a couple of moments where they kind of like subvert you, like you don't have to beat the boss. To be honest, I knew that like they weren't gonna make you beat her at the very beginning because it was so early on, and she was like such a big like boss. Like, I was like, yeah, there's no way, because they do the same thing in Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, where like the very first boss, like you're so bad at the game that early on. And like the first boss is just so hard to beat, and you can beat him. Like, you can go back and like when you restart the game, you can beat that boss because they have like a new game plus mode. But like normally what they do is you get like your hand cut off, and like that's kind of how the game starts, and like you intentionally lose. And I was like, that's probably what they're gonna do with this, just to kind of throw you for a loop. And then they do it some other times in the game, but not necessarily like, oh, you just straight up lose to this boss, but more so like you don't have to take down their entire health. Like, it's more of like, oh, you get to a certain point and then like the kind of the scenario changes. Sure. But I was going back to saying about how characters in this game, and there was one character in specific that I freaking hated. Literally, I wanted to strangle her, and it was the Night Sister on Dathomir.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So when she started off, I was like, this shit...
Wait, the Night Sister?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. I'll let you
so when I got there on that planet, she like starts off, she's like throwing all these Night Brothers at you, and these Oh, I thought you probably thought I said the ninth sister.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did.
Okay. Well, I'll get into that in a second too. But the ninth sister specifically, went to Dathomir like before I went to Kashyyyk, and at first I was just like, oh my god, this chick's annoying, dude. Like, and then when I went back later on in the story, I was like, she would not shut up about me. Like, oh, you need to leave. You gotta die. Here's all these like old like night sister corpses, like have fun with that. And I'm just like,
Zombies.
I literally like I texted one of my friends and I was just like, I want to kill her so badly. And he was like, what? No, she's great. And I was like, no, she's not. I was like, she sucks, which he had already beaten the game. And so but then when you get on later to the story, and she ends up being a really great character.
Okay, I'm so happy you said that, 'cause
Yeah,
I actually love her.
I love her now. Like I literally texted him and I was just like, yeah, I apologize. She is a great character and I want to see more of her. And she's also really funny. But yeah, so the ninth sister, oh god, yeah, I didn't like her either.
Yeah, because think about how I felt. I spent over an hour trying to beat her. And you beat her on what, like first or second try?
Third try.
Third try? Okay, yeah. So I was so frustrated. That was one of those bosses where I had to take a break and I went out to go get coffee.
Oh.
And then like I felt better when I came back and I was still getting my butt whooped. I was like, how is this possible?
Oh,
but I sucked at the game. Like I sucked at the game for probably the first half.
Let's get into the probably the biggest moment that made literally. So last week we were talking about a boss and I had not reached this boss in the game yet. And I had a feeling this was the one, but I wasn't sure until I had texted you that later that night after I'd already beaten the game. But there was a boss that you were like, dude, just you wait till you get to that boss. Like, it sucks so badly. And I was like, okay. And I got really scared. And so the bosses, you get to Dathomir, and when you get into the temple and stuff, you meet this stranger early on. And from the get go, I'm like, oh, this guy's definitely the bad guy. I'm totally fighting this guy. And you realize he was a Jedi. His name is Taron Malicos. I love this character. Like I want to see more from this character because he is super fascinating to me. And the guy who played him, Liam McIntyre, he is fantastic as Taron Malicos. I really enjoyed his performance. It was a boss fight that I was just not expecting. And so I fought him and I was like, oh, this is so cool. This is so intense. Like you're in this temple. And he's got these double or two red lightsabers and he's like he's just got this really cool fighting style. Yeah. And I got really into it. Like I was like, all right, channel my inner Jedi, and I'm parrying all of his attacks, and I'm using force push, and and using my double-bladed lightsaber to chain and to go into single blade, and like my heavy attacks, my dash attacks, slow. Like I'm using every asset that I have, and I'm like so into it. I'm like, God, this is so freaking fun. I beat him first try. Keenan did not have that experience.
Okay, so this took me almost 3 hours to beat, but
oh my god, dude.
So you texted me and you told me you beat the game, and the first thing that went to my mind was like, I gotta ask him about Malicos. I was like, because that frustrated me. It took me longer to beat Malicos than it did to beat the final boss.
Yep.
That's like how frustrated I was with this dude. So you like the character. I'm fine with never seeing him again in my life. But so it took me about 3 hours to beat this character. There were times where I even considered lowering the difficulty because I was getting that frustrated.
Oh my god.
And I was like, I'm never going to progress in this story unless I do something about it. I eventually ended up beating him. It was the most rewarding feeling I've had playing a video game probably in my lifetime. Because dude, the funny part about it is when I finally did beat him, I just jumped out of my chair and was yelling
Screaming.
and talking. I was talking trash to him.
Yep.
And I'm as if I did not lose 500 times before that. But yeah, and then so when you texted me and said that you beat him on your first try, I was like, this dude is lying. I was like, there's no freaking way. Because even the night before, I was watching Star Wars Theory's live stream.
Yep.
And he spent his whole stream at that point, right as he was about to fight. That's where his stream started, when he was about to fight him. And he spent almost 4 hours trying to beat him all night long. So I was like, okay, it's not just me, you know. And he plays video games, so I'm just like, okay, you know, he's a pretty experienced gamer. So, and I was like laughing watching his live stream, because I understood, like I felt his pain.
Oh no.
But yeah, that boss was just, it was brutal. You have to be so tactical and precise, and you cannot make a bad decision. Like you cannot make a decision based on like you said, it's like being a real life Jedi. You can't make a decision based on like your emotion in that moment.
Yeah.
Because there's times where you just want to run up to him.
You just want to run up and just attack him. Yeah.
And you cannot. You have to be so strategic with it. There were times where like if he would hit me 3 times early on, then I was like, all right, I might as well just restart this whole thing because I'm not going to beat him. I'm like, I'm going to need all of my stem.
First of all, how many? It's okay. This is another good question. So one of my friends, he only beat the game with 4 stems. How many stems did you have?
Oh yeah, he had more than me. I had 3. Now I have 7.
You had wait, you had 3 at the Terran fight?
Yeah, I had 3.
Dude, I had 7.
Oh my God. I didn't have that because at some point in time, and I'm not sure if this was.
I only used 3, but
when I got to 3, it said max amount of stem packs.
No, it said it says maximum of stems increased.
Okay, so I read that wrong.
Yeah,
then.
yeah. It's not like the max reached. It's like the cap that you have for them has been increased.
Sure.
So like
Okay.
you can. I'm pretty sure you can get up to 10. Because currently I have 8 right now, and I'm gonna go back, and so yeah. If you go around, like that's why exploration and going back to these areas is so important. I'm like, you have to go and explore and like get these other assets and stuff. Because like I was very far into the skill tree. Like I think I only currently since I have technically like beat the game, I have maybe 3 or 4 upgrades left, and I'm done. So that definitely makes a difference. But even on the Terran Malicos fight, I still had I had about 6. I think I actually had about 6 stems, 5 or 6, I think. But I think I only used like 2 or 3. And
I was about to say I feel good about myself, but if you only use 2 or 3, forget it.
Like I wasn't even like stressing on that. Like probably the hardest boss for me was actually the very first time you fight the second sister on Zepho. That was when I only had about 2 or 3 stems, and I was playing purely on emotion. Like I was just going and I was like, die, just like trying to like fight her.
That's the one where she kind of like force chokes you and throws you into a wall.
Does she?
I kind of like vaguely remember that. Like that's the one where it says like reawaken or something like that.
No,
something happens.
That's
how do you?
So that's into another section, which you were talking about in the podcast. You said there's a section that reminds you of Thor Ragnarok.
Yes, definitely.
That's when you click reawaken. So what happens is you're fighting a bounty hunter, and that's right. And so and like I got to this bounty hunter, like I'm on Zepho, and I'd already cleared out like the second part of the temple, and I'm heading back to the ship, and like first of all I could tell something was up because like all of the enemies were just gone and it was just barren, and I was like, all right, something's gonna happen. So I get like halfway to the mantis, and like and then I run into this bounty hunter, and I'm like, whoa, okay. I was like, we got knockoff Boba Fett here. Okay, cool. And I'm like fighting him, and I am freaking kicking this guy's butt, dude. Like I'm like, this guy has like barely any health left, and then all of a sudden I'm just like, and then just like get electrocuted, and I'm just like, and I just die. Like it just takes all my health, and I just fall. Like I just go to, and I'm like, what the heck was that? I was like, that was so stupid, dude. I'm like, I had that guy in the bag, and he just freaking killed me immediately. And then like after it waits a second, it says reawaken, and I'm like, oh, this is part of the story. I'm like, this is like a moment. And what it reminded me of so much was in Arkham Asylum, where there's a part in Arkham Asylum with the Scarecrow things. Mm-hmm. Where you're in, like, the third time you run into Scarecrow, you're going down this hallway, like, during, like, this security checkpoint, and, like, you hear the intercom say, like, did anyone watch the game last night? And you're like, what the heck? What is that random piece of dialogue? Like, because previously through the entire thing has been like these official, like pre-recorded things. And then that was like, what the heck? And then next thing you know, your screen just starts to glitch out and just goes black. And you're just like, oh my God. And then the game boots up again and the entire story like starts over, like the opening cutscene plays again. Spoilers for anybody who hasn't played Arkham Asylum. What have you been freaking doing? It's been 10 years. Play the game.
God.
But, and I was like, I remember during that moment, I was like, what the heck? I'm like, I've made it so far in the story. And I'm like, now it just restarted. And I was so upset until I realized, I'm like, oh, this is part of the game. Because then you see Joker like driving the Batmobile and you're like, okay, and that's exactly what this moment was for me. It's until I realized, like, as soon as it said reawaken, I'm like, oh, like, okay, this is like a subversion tactic. Like it has like me, it's supposed to be doing this. But then that was one of my favorite moments in the game, was when you get taken by the bounty hunters and you get put in with the like the Haxion Broods like arena pit fight. And I remember a couple days before, my friend texted me and was like, dude, I love this game. Like, I already know this is going to be like one of your favorite sections in the game. And I was like, oh, and as soon as I got to it, like, I was like, yep, this is one of my favorite sections, because for some clarification, like me and my friend is Cole, which if anybody remembers, he's been on an episode. I'd love to get him back on some point, possibly for like Rise of Skywalker or something. We'll have to see. But for the record, he beat this game on Jedi Grandmaster. So if you want to feel even worse, just know he's a literal god at the game.
Why'd you have to tell me that?
Well, for the record, this guy is just one of the best like single player gamers that I know. Like, he plays immensely difficult video games, and so I have nothing but respect for him. Like, he is truly a Jedi. And so he told me that and so like we're writing that, I've told this before, but we're writing this like story, and in the story my character is on Nar Shaddaa, like in like an arena gladiatorial fight, and that's where he's been at for Order 66. And so it kind of came back full circle to my character, and he was like, he knew that was going to be my favorite section of the game. And I don't know if it is my favorite section of the game, up there, like it's probably in my top 3 moments for sure, because it plays that like opening song from the game, and you're and oh God, I'm like, this is going to be such an epic moment. And it just feels so cool. Like, you just feel so epic, like fighting all of these monsters and like bounty hunters and stuff. So that was a great moment. I want to talk about Darth Vader.
Let's do it.
So I want to know I want you to tell me your experience with this ending section, just because like I just want to hear you say it.
Okay, before we say that, there's like one planet that you do open up that you go to get your Kyber crystal for your lightsaber. Ilum. And I thought that planet was so cool. I guess like
such a great moment, dude.
It's definitely like confirmed now that that's Starkiller Base.
Is it confirmed? Because
like when you pull up to the planet, you can see that it's like the beginnings of the development of the planet. Like, I was like, oh my God, I'm like, that's Starkiller Base. Like, they're starting to form Starkiller Base there. That's what it looked like to me, at least.
Especially when you get to that section, like right after you build your or you get like the new crystal, and you see this gigantic trench of like, and you're just, oh, that's Starkiller Base.
So I thought that was cool that they were able to incorporate that into the story. And then getting the whole journey to getting your lightsaber was just like a really cool and a necessary moment for Cal, I think.
I think it's such a beautiful moment. Yes.
Yeah. Just like that moment with like, especially with BD1, that's, you kind of see how important BD1 is to Cal.
Exactly.
So all of that was really cool. Then you go to, I guess, like the fortress, which is I
think after you get your new lightsaber, you go to Dathomir first.
Yeah.
You go back to Dathomir and you fight Terran Malicos. You get Marin, who I previously hated but now love. And she becomes part of your crew. And then after all of that, you go back to Bogano. You have all the pieces from the temples and stuff to get the holocron. I believe that is when you go back and you kind of have this vision of
Yeah.
Entire vision of like you training this new order and stuff. They're like Master Cal, and it's like kind of like possibly saying
that
a
was so
potential
cool.
future. And then you see like the Empire find them, and Cal's like in a full Inquisitor.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh god, like that's scary. And and it was a really cool moment. And I thought it would have been cool to like if you actually like were playing as him as an Inquisitor, like, and you got to like kill some people or something. I thought that would have been kind of neat. Maybe like kill some partisans or something like that.
A little dark.
Okay, for the record, I thought this ending was going to be super dark, and it wasn't.
Yeah.
So yeah, but then after all that, you like fight the second sister. She gets the holocron. She steals it from you. Like stun you, because I guess it like has like, you know, forced memories. Well, the reason he has it is because obviously he has, what's the term that they have? Essentially, he can see memories. Can see like he sees the echoes and everything throughout the story, and so when he gets the lightsaber, he can immediately see like the past, what happens to them. Really cool moment. You're like seeing everything from Trilla's perspective, like in first person. You see like she's getting tortured. You see her like being left in the cave by Ser. Side and stuff. Really, really cool moment. And then obviously you figure out like where the Inquisitor base is at. It's like you can clearly see that it's like right on the other side of Mustafar. You're like, oh, there's like, because I always thought the Inquisitor's base was on Mustafar, and I guess I was wrong about that. I guess it's not too far by, but like Darth Vader's like, I want to have this planet to myself.
Yeah.
They go there, and then this entire just ending section is just so cool. Like I feel like this is kind of where you can clearly tell it's like the end of the story. You're like, all right, yeah, this is like going to be, because there's no like discoverable items or anything there. You're like, all right, this is the final section of the game.
Yeah.
And then like you get that cool dojo fight where you're like, you go to the dojo and there's like two purge troopers fighting, and you just fight all these guys and stuff. Really cool moment. And then you get to the torture chamber where you think the holocron's at, and then you fight the second sister for like the final time. I think it's the fourth and final time we were talking about it. You think it was like, you fight her like, well, maybe it was you fight her the first time, second time, third, the fourth time you fight her. Yeah. And she was actually like kind of a pain for me. Like I beat her on like my third try, but like she was still really annoying because like she would drop these flash grenades, and like which was so dumb. I'm like, why do you freaking have flash grenades? I was like, you jerk. And and then anyway, like I remember like as I beat her, I was flashed, and so it still had the flash effect over the cutscene.
Oh, that sucks.
And I was like, what's going on? And then it finally like dissipated, and I was like, okay, I'm still seeing stars, but all right. And then you just get this awesome cutscene. Now you tell me like your experience, because you didn't have anything spoiled for you. I did.
This wasn't spoiled for me, thank God, dude. Like, cause I don't know why, but throughout playing this story, I never once thought that there was a possibility I would be seeing Darth Vader at all. Like, it just never crossed my mind.
Yeah.
Looking back at it now, I'm like, oh, like why did I not see this coming?
Yeah.
So you have essentially Trilla so Seer shows up to the fight at the end.
At this point, she's like reconnected her. She's like embraced the Force again. She's like, all right. Yeah.
Exactly. So, and then you have Trilla standing in front of you guys, and Seer's trying to like convince her, it's not too late, turn away from this. And all of a sudden, you just feel a shift in the atmosphere of
the camera game. Work is, first of all, I've watched this like 20 times.
Yeah.
And it's like, you see like this whole conversation, and she's like, I've carried so much hate for you. And then you see like the camera tilt up, and you see like this steam just kind of roll in, and the tone immediately changes.
And you see, obviously you can see like with Trilla, immediately there's this look of fear on her face.
She senses his presence.
Yeah. And out of nowhere, so you have like Darth Vader creep up from behind.
Well, I think the way they build up the suspense first you hear clunk, 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 like you hear his boots, and you're like, what?
And then you hear
you hear the breathing. You're like the
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh no.
And then she says "avenge us." She yells "avenge us,"
Yeah.
which I thought was
Well,
amazing.
well, first of all, I have like the entire scene like memorized. She's like, first of all, like Sarah's like, or Cal is like, that's not good, and Sarah's like, no,
Yeah.
it's him, because she's already met him. She talks about earlier in the game like there's a shadow or like this dark side presence that like essentially tortured her, and that's why she kind of gave in.
Gotcha.
And she says like it's him. First of all, the way he jumps down also is you can hear like kind of him using the force to like fall down, and he goes like, and then like clunks down on the ground and rises up, and then he goes, "You have failed me, Inquisitor," and you're just like, oh no. And then you just hear the saber ignite, and she just goes, "Avenge us." First of all, and the way they play the music, so they play the Revenge of the Sith, Anakin's dark deeds. During this, and as soon as he kills her, you just hear like the choir just like freaking starts like screaming or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh my god, like this is such a, and you're like, crap, am I gonna have to fight Darth Vader right now? You're like, I'm so screwed. This is how
I thought they were gonna pull a Halo Reach on me, where like you continuously try to fight him, but you're gonna die.
You're gonna
like,
die
no matter
regardless.
what.
I thought the exact same thing.
Yeah.
So what was your like experience when you first had to fight him? I'm curious how you played through it.
First of all, I was just so excited, but at the same time, I was so scared.
Yeah.
So obviously he throws like Seer kind of like off a ledge
Dude,
when she tries
such
to attack.
a great. She runs straight at him, and he just flicks his hand. Like,
Yeah.
It's great.
It was amazing. And then you try to fight him. He ends up getting you kind of like in a forced choke, or he's like kind of holding you. And then that's when you have the option, which I didn't see for a little while, but you have the option to kind of like force pull like this part of the ship down at him. That's when he kind of gets distracted, and you're able to make your run for it. And then the whole running from him part was so cool, especially with the music.
Oh yeah.
And then you get into that elevator, but you're like trying to start the elevator.
You're like,
and then you see over the corner, you see Darth Vader standing outside of the elevator.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God.
Oh.
Like, please hurry up.
Then
you shut the elevator
lightsaber
doors.
through it.
Yeah. And then you see his red lightsaber. And the whole time, I'm just like freaking out by this whole thing. It's just like,
you're like, go.
Exactly. And I didn't die on any of the attempts to run from him, which made it better.
Yeah.
Because it didn't like stop my momentum and excitement. And so that whole thing's going on, but like when you're not expecting him to show up at all, and this is happening so fast, your adrenaline just really starts, pumping.
Yeah.
And they, other than Rogue One, I can't remember a time where I felt like so much like excitement and also
so much
fear.
Yeah.
Like this scene shows the power that Darth Vader has.
Oh my God. Yes.
You really build up your character so much that by the end of the game, you feel almost unbeatable, and then you beat the final boss, and you're feeling pretty good about yourself, and like where you are in terms of like your skill tree and your powers.
And then here's the greatest Sith
it shows
Lord of
you
all
have
time.
nothing on Darth Vader at all. Like you can't even get close to beating him.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how they kind of perfected Darth Vader.
Yeah.
And then it gets to the ending where Seer kind of helps you out with beating him.
Yeah, first of all, like you get up to the elevator and he's like, I think he's gone. I think we lost him. And you're like,
yeah,
shut up. You're like, you're like, he's not gone.
No
and
chance.
you're like running for a little bit, and you get to that door, and they're like Seer's gone or whatever, and you're just running for your life, and then you just open that door, and it just plays the Imperial March like really menacingly, and he's just like going at you, and it's really cool because I was like, you stab Vader for a second. And you're just like, oh my God, okay, like I'm actually got a hit on him, and then he just freaking throws you across the room, and you're like trying to pull your lightsaber, and he just stops it. He's like, no. He's like, just stop.
And stabs you.
Yeah. Then he like stabs you with your own lightsaber. Like the way they build it, like it just slowly like tilts over, and then just like straight into his abdomen, and then Seer comes out of nowhere, and like it's just such a cool moment until like the way they escape, like. The way they handled it is it wasn't like Vader got beat. It was more just like they got really lucky, Yeah. And I was for sure like to be honest, when I went into this game, like in the ending, like I thought they were just gonna die. Like,
I did too.
Because so in Rebels, you figure out about these Force sensitive children. Like they do it in not only in Clone Wars, but like Palpatine like figures out about them, but also in Rebels. There's like an entire episode, and it's based in season 2 with Ahsoka, where the Inquisitors are finding these Force sensitive children and possibly turning them into Inquisitors. And so from that viewpoint, I was like, well, this is how they got the list of names. Like, they're going to fail. It's going to be a dark ending, and they're going to die, or somebody's turning into an Inquisitor.
Yeah.
And that's how they get the Force-sensitive children. And that was not the ending at all. They actually get the list, but then they decide to destroy it. And everybody lives.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah, first of all, I love that. I'm glad they didn't keep the list, because I was just like, oh, this like would have been really weird and hard to write around. But to be honest, I was just surprised it had such a more of a lighthearted ending than I thought it was going to be. Like, I was like, nobody died. And we have like the kind of this cool family, almost kind of like Rebels, where they have kind of like this dysfunctional family. But I mean, you've got BD1, you've got Cal, you've got Sarah, which are like, one's a Jedi, one's kind of not a Jedi, like this weird middle ground thing. Then you've got a Night Sister, and then like this gambler, like alien dude, and then this little robot dog, and that's your crew. And it's like, it's really cool. Like, you can tell that they're totally like connected with one another, and I love that. But I was overall happy with the ending. I'm just curious. I'm like, all right, are they going to make a sequel, or is there going to be a DLC? Like, where are they going to go with this? Because it's like, it's hard to say like what they're going to do with the ending.
Yeah, I mean, there's no telling. I would prefer to see a sequel.
Yeah, I would love to see a sequel.
If not a sequel, I need another game like this in the Star Wars universe.
Yes.
And I'm not talking about like Battlefront 3 having a campaign mode. I'm like, I just need a straight up single player game like this.
Yes. God, it's like, this is what has revitalized my passion for Star Wars games. Like, don't get me wrong, I love Battlefront 2, and I thoroughly enjoy that game for its multiplayer experience, but its single player was not good.
No.
And playing this was such a breath of fresh air. Like, I'm just like, oh man, I have not felt like I have played this great single player Star Wars game in literally so long. I'm trying to think of like the most recent like Star Wars single player game that was new that I thoroughly enjoyed like the story of was probably like The Force Unleashed 2, which came out in like 2011. I'm like, it's been like 8 years since like a fully fledged like single player cinematic story has come out, like, other than like, you know, Lego games and like or older games that I had played for like the first time. So this was just like, they really put passion into this game, and I can't commend them enough. Like, I watched the documentary, the one that you were talking about, and like, it's so cool to see that. I would highly recommend, if you like loved the game, to go watch the making of this, and like, it's so cool to see like how much heart and like dedication they put into this game.
Yeah, they cared about getting this game right, and obviously this game's been in development for a little while now, right? Since before Battlefront 2.
I think it's been about 5 years. I think it's been in development.
So it's like roughly around Battlefront 1 time. This is before, like,
I think it started roughly when the first
happened.
EA Battlefront came out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's really cool to see that these people wanted to get this game right. And yeah, I appreciate stuff like that. Like, I love Insomniac for, you know, the amount of care and detail they put into Spider-Man. And now I love Respawn for the same reason.
Respawn has easily become probably one of my favorite developers of all time. Because I've loved every single one of their games they've come out with. Titanfall 1 and 2 and Apex, I think, are all great games. Titanfall 2 is probably like one of my favorite shooters of all time. Yeah, and it has very underrated for sure. And when I heard they were doing a Star Wars game, I'm like, oh man, like, this is gonna be so different, because all they've really done is like shooters and like action adventure shooters. And so I'm like, how are they gonna handle this? And they did just such a great job, you know. Like, I think one thing is just like the combat is really satisfying. The story is really well written. The characters are built up really well, and it's just a really great Star Wars story. Built, and it's like not really built around this entire, you know, saga. You know, it's like
exactly.
And they just did such a fantastic job with it. It's hard to say. People have been saying like, this is my new favorite Star Wars game, and it's so hard to say that, because literally, like, so many of my favorite Star Wars games are like my favorite games of all time. Like, I mean, I've got like the Jedi Outcast, Jedi Academy, KOTOR, Republic Commando, the Battlefront games, Force Unleashed. Like, there's just so much great Star Wars games. So it's hard to say like what my favorite is, but this for sure is like another like one of the best Star Wars games out there, and it's I'm so happy to have it.
I agree, and it's kind of like coming like I think the reason that I love the game so much and it means so much to me is it just kind of like revitalized my love for Star Wars. That and The Mandalorian.
Yep.
Like, I know in a few years I'm going to look back on these two things and be like, wow, that like really, brought back the excitement that I used to have for Star Wars.
Some of the favorite things in Star Wars, yeah.
Exactly. And that's why they've kind of meant a lot to me. Same thing with like Spider-Man PS4. Like, when I wasn't really happy with the MCU Spider-Man, for a while, and then I got that, it kind of revitalized my love for Spider-Man in a weird way.
I think it's another thing to say, like we talk about how like there's kind of a Spider-Man for everyone. There's almost kind of like a quote Star Wars for everyone,
Yeah.
Like, I feel like every person kind of has like, it's granted, I feel like people should be able to enjoy all of Star Wars, but sometimes I'm like, there's other stories that people enjoy more than other ones, for example. Like, I mean, some people don't like certain stories, but other people really love them. Like, I know a lot of people in the fan base, they really like, the books, especially like the books like the Padme one and the Leia one. To me, like, those don't interest me that well because they're like more political and not very like action oriented. And maybe that's just because I'm like a guy, but like, I really enjoy like obviously the Mandalorian and these Star Wars games and like these comics and stuff, like these more, they kind of bring out like the child in me, these epic stories and things like that. And it just makes me so happy to be like, it literally feels like right now what it felt like when during like 2007 and 8, when like I was playing all of these Star Wars games and like reading these books and these comics and like all of this and watching Clone Wars, and like where I was just like so like excited for Star Wars and like I just had so much great stuff. And it just feels like that again. And like Fallen Order will definitely be like, I think it'll probably end up being some of like my favorite canon stories for sure. We were talking about it last night before we saw Knives Out, and I was like, I really, really hope they figure out a way to do a New Game Plus just so I can experience the story again. I mean, if I have to start a new campaign, I will, but I really want to go back with like all my Force abilities and just like, and I may even bump up the difficulty, or like maybe if they do a New Game Plus where like how they treated it in Arkham City, where in Arkham City, the New Game Plus was like, you didn't have the counter above their head. Like you went back with all your abilities and stuff, but like they didn't have counter, they did more damage, and there's parts of the game that are harder. So if I had to wait a couple months, I would love for them to kind of like retune the game so that like they can make it harder for you, like to accommodate for all these new abilities you have, but just so I can kind of have this new fresh experience, but also like have the story. To be honest, I'd even pay money for it, to be honest. Like I'd throw down $10 just for like a really cool like New Game Plus, or maybe like even like this small like DLC where you like maybe like you get like a dark side ending that's like not canon or something like that, or you do turn into an Inquisitor. Something like that would be really cool. I want to see just a little bit more support for this game, and because I think a lot of single player games, they still get support after the fact. I don't need to see like a multiplayer mode or anything like that. Like I don't really need that. I just want more like, I just want to be able to play this game more. Like I beat it and I'm like, I want more. Give me more.
I thought about that because like, I draw comparisons to Spider-Man because it's also one of my favorite games, single player story games in a while. And with that game, it was very easy for me to just restart. Especially, I mean, they did come out with a New Game Plus, but even if I didn't have that, it's easy to restart. With this game, it kind of takes a lot out of you with the whole like exploration, and you're going through these retraining memories and stuff like that. That I'm like, I probably have to wait a little while before I can replay this game and it feel fresh without me getting frustrated about doing the tedious things.
Right.
Because when you're doing it for the first time, it doesn't feel as tedious. But there's like, I'm thinking about all the times when I'm running around forest pushing these giant, massive
balls.
Yeah, and I'm like, God, I cannot do that again right now.
Yeah, I know.
Like
what
that
you
took a
mean.
lot of time,
Yeah.
and you're also trying to like defeat droids that are attacking you while you're doing this and stuff. And I'm like, I can't really do that right now. But I can see myself like maybe in 6 months wanting to revisit the story and maybe forgetting about a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
But right now I'm still playing it. Like I'm still exploring and trying to like 100% the game. I'm around like 80 something % on each of the planets right now. So I still have a little bit of work to do.
I'd recommend going to Bogano first, just because that's a very easy planet to 100%. If you go, see, for me, I'm 100% on Bogano. Zepho, I'm like late 80s, possibly early 90s. Kashyyyk, I'm like 94%, and Dathomir, I'm like 85%. And that was just from like before I even beat the story. So like I definitely did a lot more exploring than you did.
Sure.
So yeah, why didn't you do that, you idiot? I'm kidding. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I don't know. Like
no, you wanted to rush the story and like, before you got spoiled, and I totally understand.
Absolutely is. Like I knew that spoilers were I already started to see some spoilers that weren't like the ending. But like, there would be like I'd go on YouTube and it'd be like cutscene of fight with the Ninth Sister or something like that, and I'm like, God, I'm like already, I'm like day one after the game.
I got spoiled for Order 66 and Darth Vader. I knew there was an Order 66 moment, and it was just because there was like a clone trooper model, and I'm like, well, like okay, I assumed there was gonna be that. And I even assumed like Vader was probably going to be in the game too. I just didn't know how. And I just saw like ending boss fight, Darth Vader cutscene. And I'm like, why? I'm like, which to be fair, even with that, like it didn't ruin the moment for me. Like when it happened, I was like so freaking happy. So I'm not like super upset by it. By the way, one last thing, probably before we should like wrap up the episode. When I did the whole Vader thing, I was freaking out, and but then as soon as they throw you into it, literally I didn't even get a hit on Vader because I had half health and no stims left from fighting the Ninth Sister, and so like I was sitting there, literally my health was in the red, and I was like, I'm screwed. I'm like,
you're thinking you have to fight the Ninth Sister again.
Oh, I was
the Second Sister.
Second Sister. I was afraid that was gonna happen, but thankfully he just within 2 seconds he just choked me and threw me, and I was like, oh my God! And then immediately it was just like click right stick to aim, and I'm like, oh my God! And then I saw like the blue outline, and I figured that out. What sucked for me though is you were saying how like you didn't mess up on any of the running sections. I did. Yeah. So like as I'm running, there's the part like at the very end when like the bridge like turns to the left. Like he's like twisting it, trying to mess you up. I thought it was like gonna take me in a different direction. Like I wasn't supposed to go to the elevator. So I just kept on running straight. And I was like, and I just ran and just whoop, dead. And I was like, oh. Well, and then I respawned, and like I was like, well, I have all my stems and stuff back now, so that's good. And then I finally like figured it out. But I love how like he just disassembles like everything. Like he's just like tearing the facility apart, throwing these like platforms at you, killing his own troops. Like you're running, and there's this one trooper, and like the metal platform just like curves inward and just crushes him. And I was like, okay. But yeah. Fallen Order, we love it.
Yeah,
I think that's all
for sure.
I mean, we could talk about it for sure for more, but I have to pee really badly, and he has to go to work. So we've talked a lot about Fallen Order.
Yeah. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the game. Let us know,
so, yeah.
like in the comments section, or hit us up on Instagram and Twitter, and let us know what you thought about the game. That's going to do it for this episode. We're going to end it so Grayson can run and go pee, and I'm going to go to work.
Yeah.
But, thank you guys so much for listening. Shout out to Joseph and Jess for supporting the podcast on Patreon. Be sure to rate, review, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we will talk to you guys next time.